The archival records of the Zentralian Imperium would later note the precise moment of their first critical miscalculation. Standard Galactic Cycle 74-20-9-3, when Captain Zarax reviewed the preliminary reconnaissance data on Earth. His command deck stretched across the length of the flagship Eternal Dominion, a vessel so massive it could eclipse entire moons. Holographic displays flickered with intricate data streams, each screen painting a picture of what appeared to be the most unremarkable planet in the known universe. Zarax's primary sensory clusters, 4 independently rotating eyes that could process visual information across multiple spectrums, narrowed with a mixture of contempt and professional curiosity. Humanity had been under passive observation for nearly 2 centuries, and nothing in those records suggested anything beyond a primitive, fractured species. Their technological development seemed painfully slow, their political systems chaotic, their global communications a cacophony of conflicting ideologies. The latest intelligence briefing made for almost comedic reading. Human civilization still argued about climate change, economic disparities, and territorial boundaries, while the galaxy beyond their tiny solar system teemed with civilizations that had mastered faster-than-light travel centuries ago. Their most advanced weapons looked like child's toys compared to the quantum-folding artillery of the Zentralian war machine. Senior analyst Krellman, a veteran xenosociologist with over 9 galactic cycles of research, had compiled a particularly sardonic report. His holographic projection materialized beside Zarax, translucent but detailed enough to showcase the subtle mandible movements that indicated Zentralian amusement. Observe the fundamental contradictions, Krellman's projection said, highlighting various data points. They possess computational networks of surprising complexity, yet remain divided by arbitrary geographical and cultural boundaries. Their scientific communities make breakthrough discoveries, only to have political systems immediately suppress or monetize those advancements. They have the potential for remarkable innovation, but consistently undermine themselves. The displays showed a rapid montage. Climate scientists warning of ecological collapse, technological innovators struggling for funding, political leaders more interested in short-term gains than long-term survival. To the Zentralian perspective, humans looked like a species perpetually on the brink of self-destruction. What made their situation even more laughable was their complete lack of unified planetary defense. While other spacefaring civilizations invested tremendous resources in protective infrastructure, humans seemed more concerned with internal conflicts. Their space exploration was tentative, limited to robotic probes and a handful of lunar and Martian missions. No massive defense platforms, no global shield generators, no unified military response protocols for potential extraterrestrial threats. Zarax's personal logs would later reveal his exact thoughts. They do not even understand the predatory nature of the galaxy. Every civilization we've encountered understands the first rule of cosmic survival: prepare for threats beyond your current comprehension. The Zentralian Imperium had conquered or subjugated over 200 planetary civilizations. Their approach was systematic, almost bureaucratic. Initial reconnaissance, psychological profile, technological assessment, strategic intervention. Humanity seemed like it would be their most routine conquest yet, a footnote in their expansive galactic record. Little did Captain Zarax know that every scan, every intercepted communication, every moment of observed human activity was being processed through a network far more complex than anything the Zentralian Imperium could comprehend. Humanity wasn't weak. They were waiting. And their waiting would change everything. The 3 Zentralian dreadnoughts moved with a precision that bordered on mathematical poetry. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of galactic warfare technology. Kilometer-long constructs of quantum-locked alloys and computational systems so advanced they could predict battlefield dynamics centuries in advance. The flagship Eternal Dominion sat at the center, flanked by the Cosmic Hammer and the Void Breaker, their massive forms casting electromagnetic shadows that could disrupt communication systems across entire star systems. Captain Zarax ran a diagnostics check with practiced efficiency. Invasion protocols were as familiar to him as breathing. 37 planetary conquests had taught him that most species capitulated the moment they understood the scale of technological superiority arrayed against them. Humanity would be no different. At least, that's what he believed. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion hummed with a subtle anticipation. Tactical officers monitored countless data streams, their multi-jointed appendages dancing across holographic interfaces. Each screen displayed layers of information about Earth, population centers, communication networks, technological infrastructure. To the Zentralian military, it looked like an exposed nerve, vulnerable, unprotected, ripe for conquest. Junior tactical analyst Brentic couldn't contain her excitement. She had graduated top of her class at the Imperial War Academy, and this would be her first full-scale planetary intervention. Preliminary scans show minimal orbital defense, she reported, her voice carrying a note of professional pride. No unified planetary shield. No significant deep space weapon platforms. Their largest space-based systems appear to be simple communication and observation satellites. Zarax allowed himself a small gesture of amusement, a subtle mandible click that translated to sardonic humor in Zentralian body language. He activated the standard invasion communication protocol, a transmission so refined it had broken the spirit of civilizations across multiple galactic sectors. The message was simple, direct, and had been the harbinger of countless planetary surrenders. AT&T Lion planetary inhabitants of Nation, Earth. This communication represents your single opportunity for orderly transition. The Zentralian Imperium hereby claims sovereign rights to your planetary resources and biological infrastructure. You will 1. Cease all current technological and military activities. 2. Prepare global leadership for immediate negotiation. 3. Initiate complete societal shutdown to facilitate peaceful occupation. Resistance is mathematically improbable. Cooperation ensures minimal disruption to your existing social structures. Response window: 72 standard galactic time units. Failure to comply will result in immediate and comprehensive planetary neutralization. Most species would have descended into panic. Governments would fracture. Military commands would argue. Societal infrastructure would begin to collapse under the weight of impending doom. But something was different about the response coming from Earth. The communication channels didn't fill with desperate diplomatic pleas. No frantic military mobilizations appeared. Instead, a data packet began streaming back, complex, multifaceted, originating from what seemed like hundreds of seemingly unrelated sources. Vrentic's initial analysis triggered a series of warning alerts. "Captain," she said, her professional calm slightly rattled. The response: "It's not typical." Zarax leaned forward, his 4 eyes focusing with sudden, intense concentration. Whatever was happening didn't match any invasion response in the Zentralian historical archives. And in that moment of unexpected uncertainty, the first seeds of doubt began to germinate in the most technologically advanced invasion fleet in galactic history. Humanity was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. The data packet arrived like a quantum thunderbolt, unlike anything in the Zentralian Imperium's extensive first contact archives. What should have been a simple transmission of planetary surrender transformed into a labyrinthine network of information that began to consume every computational resource on the Eternal Dominion's bridge. Senior cryptanalyst Drenmal was the first to realize something extraordinary was happening. His specialized decryption systems, which had cracked the communication codes of over 50 galactic civilizations, began to struggle. The incoming data wasn't just encrypted, it was alive. Each algorithmic layer peeled back revealed not just information, but entire ecosystems of knowledge. "This is impossible," Drenmal muttered, his neural interfaces starting to overheat from the computational complexity. The transmission originated from what appeared to be a completely decentralized network. Universities in Berlin interconnected with research labs in Tokyo. A small biotechnology firm in Sao Paulo linked with quantum computing centers in Massachusetts. Silicon Valley startups merged with agricultural research stations in Kenya. It was as if the entire planet had become a single, breathing computational organism. Captain Zarax watched in growing unease as holographic displays began to fill with increasingly complex visualizations. What started as a simple invasion protocol was transforming into something far more intricate. The human response wasn't just a message. It was a comprehensive analysis of the Zentralian invasion fleet that seemed to know more about their technology than they knew themselves. Vrentik's hands moved frantically across her interface. "Captain, the data packet is adapting. It's changing its own encryption in real time. Our decryption protocols can't maintain a consistent approach." The first layer of the transmission revealed something shocking. Detailed schematics of the Eternal Dominion began to appear, not just external views, but internal structural analysis that showed microscopic vulnerabilities in the ship's quantum-locked alloys. Calculations demonstrated precise points where the ship's defensive systems could be systematically compromised. But it wasn't just technical data. Psychological profiles of the entire Zentralian command structure materialized. Years of intercepted communications, behavioral analysis, and predictive modeling showed a comprehensive understanding of Zentralian decision-making processes. The humans had constructed a near-perfect model of how the invasion fleet would think, react, and potentially fail. "How?" Zarax whispered, his 4 eyes dilating in a mixture of fear and professional fascination. The transmission continued to unfold. It wasn't a plea for mercy or a standard diplomatic communication. It was a meticulously crafted demonstration of humanity's true capability. A warning disguised as an analysis, a defense mechanism that transformed data into a weapon more potent than any physical armament. Drenmel's neural interfaces began to overload. The data packet wasn't just information. It was a living system that was actively probing the Zentralian fleet's computational defenses. Each microsecond saw millions of potential scenarios analyzed, potential response strategies calculated and discarded. "They've been watching us," Vrentik said, her voice barely a whisper. "Not just recently. For decades, perhaps centuries." The transmission revealed something even more terrifying. This wasn't a single coordinated effort by a unified human government. This was a spontaneous, collective response from a species that had transformed global competition into global cooperation when faced with an existential threat. Universities shared data. Tech companies contributed computational power. Independent researchers cross-referenced findings. What the Zentralian Imperium saw as a fractured, chaotic civilization was actually a highly adaptive, interconnected network capable of responding to threats in ways no traditional military could comprehend. As the final layers of the transmission began to resolve, Captain Zarax realized something fundamental had changed. This was no longer an invasion. This was a first contact that would redefine everything the Zentralian Imperium understood about technological warfare. Humanity wasn't preparing to surrender. They were preparing to teach a lesson. The analysis began to unfold like a perfectly choreographed symphony of scientific precision. In the depths of the Eternal Dominion's computational core, senior analysts watched in growing horror as humanity's data packet began to dissect their technological superiority with surgical accuracy. Dr. Krellman, the veteran cinesociologist who had previously mocked human potential, now sat in stunned silence. The data wasn't just a report. It was a comprehensive deconstruction of Zentralian technological assumptions that had remained unchallenged for millennia. The first layer revealed molecular-level analysis of the dreadnought's hull composition. Zentralian quantum-locked alloys, previously considered the most advanced defensive material in the known galaxy, were suddenly revealed to have microscopic structural weaknesses. Precise mathematical models demonstrated how these weaknesses could be systematically exploited, not through brute force, but through subtle, quantum-level manipulations. "This is impossible," muttered senior technician Vreltax, his neural interfaces struggling to process the incoming information. "No civilization could have this level of detailed understanding of our technology." But the humans had done exactly that. The analysis went beyond physical structures. Psychological profiles of the entire Zentralian command hierarchy materialized, revealing behavioral patterns so intricate that they seemed to predict potential decisions before they were even considered. Years of intercepted communications, behavioral studies, and predictive modeling had been synthesized into a comprehensive understanding of Zentralian decision-making processes. Each section of the data packet was a masterpiece of interdisciplinary research. Quantum physicists collaborated with material scientists. Behavioral psychologists worked alongside computational experts. Linguists analyzed communication patterns. Economists studied resource allocation strategies. The entire transmission was a living, breathing ecosystem of knowledge that defied traditional understanding of scientific collaboration. Captain Zarax watched as the holographic displays began to reveal something truly terrifying. The humans hadn't just studied the Zentralian invasion fleet, they had anticipated it. Multiple scenario simulations showed potential invasion strategies, with countermeasures already developed and refined. Each potential Zentralian move had been predicted, analyzed, and neutralized before the fleet had even entered the solar system. What made the analysis truly remarkable was its lack of aggression. This wasn't a weapon in any traditional sense. It was a comprehensive demonstration of scientific capability, a warning wrapped in pure intellectual achievement. The humans were showing, not telling, the depth of their potential. Dr. Krellman's earlier contempt transformed into a complex mixture of professional admiration and genuine fear. "They'd been preparing," he said softly, "not just for this invasion, but for any potential threat we couldn't even imagine." The data packet revealed the true nature of human scientific collaboration. What the Zentralian Imperium had seen as a fractured, competitive global system was actually a highly adaptive network. Universities shared resources. Competing tech companies set aside rivalries. Independent researchers cross-referenced findings in real time. Global challenges had transformed competition into unprecedented cooperation. Vriltax's neural interfaces began to overheat from the computational complexity. The transmission wasn't just information. It was a living system that actively probed and analyzed the Zentralian fleet's technological and psychological vulnerabilities. "They've been watching us," Captain Zarax realized, not just recently, for decades, perhaps centuries. Each microsecond saw millions of potential scenarios analyzed, response strategies calculated and instantly refined. The humans had transformed data collection into a form of collective intelligence that operated beyond any traditional understanding of military or scientific preparation. As the final layers of the transmission began to resolve, the Zentralian command understood a fundamental truth that would reshape their entire galactic perspective. Humanity wasn't just preparing for an invasion. They were redefining the very concept of preparedness. The scientific trap was about to be sprung. The concept of an adaptive response system was about to be redefined in ways the Zentralian Imperium could never have anticipated. What began as a simple invasion protocol was transforming into the most comprehensive lesson in technological evolution the galaxy had ever witnessed. Deep within the computational core of the Eternal Dominion, systems began to change in ways that defied traditional understanding. The human data packet wasn't just information. It was a living, breathing entity that could reshape itself in real time, exploiting every microscopic vulnerability in the Zentralian technological infrastructure. Chief computational analyst Zrendok watched in growing terror as their most secure systems began to become compromised. It wasn't a traditional cyber attack. Traditional cyber attacks sought to break through defenses. This was something entirely different. A systematic reconfiguration of technological potential. Universities in Berlin connected with research stations in Antarctica. A small biotechnology firm in Brazil linked with quantum computing centers in Canada. Silicon Valley startups merged with agricultural research networks in Kenya. What appeared to be disconnected systems were actually nodes in a global adaptive intelligence network. The first signs of the true nature of human preparedness began to emerge. Each potential alien threat had been meticulously war-gamed, simulated across thousands of computational models, with counter-strategies developed that went far beyond simple military response. This was a civilization-level adaptive mechanism that could reshape itself faster than any traditional defensive system could comprehend. "They'd been preparing," Zrendok muttered, "not just for us, but for threats we can't even imagine." The adaptive response wasn't limited to technological systems. Psychological profiles began to interlink, creating a comprehensive understanding of potential conflict scenarios that went beyond mere military strategy. Global communication networks transformed into a living, breathing defensive mechanism. What the Zentralian Imperium saw as chaos was actually the most sophisticated early warning system in galactic history. Agricultural research centers provided insights into resource management. Medical research networks developed rapid response protocols for potential biological interactions. Environmental scientists contributed data about planetary adaptation strategies. Every single human discipline became a potential defensive node in a global network. Captain Zarax realized the horrifying truth. Humanity hadn't built traditional defenses because they had something far more dangerous: a planet-wide, interconnected adaptive response system that could neutralize threats before they even fully materialized. The data transmission continued to evolve. Machine learning algorithms developed by competing tech companies merged into a unified analytical platform. Open-source research initiatives shared computational resources. What should have been a competitive global system had transformed into the most sophisticated collective intelligence mechanism imaginable. Zrendok's neural interfaces began to overheat. The incoming data wasn't just information. It was a living system that could predict and neutralize technological advantages with terrifying precision. Each microsecond saw millions of potential scenarios analyzed, with response strategies calculated and instantly refined. The humans had transformed global competition into a unified response mechanism. Competing universities shared resources. Rival tech companies set aside differences. Independent researchers cross-referenced findings in real time. Global challenges had been transformed into unprecedented cooperation. "They're not just defending," Captain Zarax whispered. "They're evolving." Quantum physicists collaborated with material scientists. Behavioral psychologists worked alongside computational experts. Linguists analyzed communication patterns. Economists studied resource allocation strategies. The entire transmission was a living, breathing ecosystem of knowledge that defied traditional understanding of scientific collaboration. As the final layers of the adaptive response began to resolve, the Zentralian Command understood a fundamental truth that would reshape their entire galactic perspective. Humanity wasn't just preparing for an invasion. They were redefining the very concept of preparedness, adaptation, and collective intelligence. The adaptive nightmare was about to be unleashed. The first systems began to fail in ways that defied conventional understanding. It wasn't a traditional attack. It was a complete systematic deconstruction of technological capability that spread through the Zentralian fleet like a quantum-level cancer. Quantum-entangled communication networks started to twist, their precise mathematical pathways suddenly becoming unpredictable labyrinths of data. The Eternal Dominion's primary computational core began to experience cascading failures that seemed to anticipate every potential countermeasure before it could be implemented. Lieutenant Vreltax was the first to notice the fundamental shift. "Our communication channels," she reported, her voice trembling slightly. "They're changing." What humans had done was nothing short of technological sorcery. Each ship's defensive system became a conduit for its own potential destruction. Nano-adaptive viral countermeasures began to rewrite the fundamental operating protocols of the Zentralian fleet. Computational strategies predicted and neutralized technological advantages with a precision that bordered on the impossible. The attack, if it could even be called an attack, was a symphony of scientific precision. Massive dreadnoughts designed to reduce planetary surfaces to molten slag found themselves becoming nothing more than sophisticated collections of inert matter. Weapon systems that had subjugated hundreds of civilizations began to fail at the most fundamental level. Captain Zarax watched in growing horror as the invasion fleet's most advanced technologies turned against themselves. Defensive shields began to fluctuate. Quantum-locked alloys started to develop microscopic structural failures. Communication networks twisted into incomprehensible data mazes. "This is impossible," Zrendok muttered, his neural interfaces burning with the intensity of computational overload. No civilization can manipulate technology at this level. But humanity had done exactly that. The reversal wasn't just technological. It was a comprehensive dismantling of the Zentralian Imperium's most fundamental assumptions about warfare, technology, and civilization-level responses. Each system failure revealed another layer of human preparation, a multidisciplinary approach that transformed scientific research into the most potent defensive mechanism imaginable. Computational models developed by competing tech companies merged into unified analytical platforms. Open-source research initiatives shared computational resources. What should have been a competitive global system had transformed into the most sophisticated collective intelligence mechanism in galactic history. Biological research networks provided insights into adaptive response mechanisms. Environmental scientists contributed data about systemic vulnerabilities. Medical research centers developed rapid response protocols for technological interactions. Every single human discipline became a potential offensive and defensive node in a global network. The most terrifying aspect was the precision. It wasn't a blunt instrument of destruction. It was a surgical deconstruction of technological capability that seemed to understand the Zentralian systems better than their own creators. Weapon systems that had reduced entire civilizations to ash began to fail in ways that suggested a deep, almost intimate understanding of their fundamental design. Quantum communication networks twisted into impossible geometric patterns. Defensive shields developed microscopic failures that propagated with mathematical precision. "They're not just defending," Captain Zarax realized. "They're teaching us a lesson." Each moment saw millions of potential scenarios analyzed, with response strategies calculated and instantly refined. The humans had transformed global competition into a unified response mechanism that defied every known principle of technological warfare. Quantum physicists, material scientists, behavioral psychologists, computational experts, all working in a harmonious, adaptive network that could respond to threats faster than any traditional military could comprehend. As the final layers of the technological reversal began to resolve, the Zentralian Command understood a fundamental truth that would reshape their entire galactic perspective. Humanity wasn't just repelling an invasion. They were redefining the very concept of technological conflict. The technological nightmare was complete. The news spread faster than quantum communication channels could transmit. The most powerful invasion fleet in galactic history had been systematically dismantled by a species previously considered technologically inconsequential. Diplomatic channels across hundreds of star systems began to buzz with a mixture of shock, fear, and reluctant admiration. Ambassador Excelnar of the Galactic Confederation listened to the transmission multiple times, each replay revealing new layers of complexity. The comprehensive report from the Zentralian survivors was unlike anything in diplomatic archives. It wasn't a standard defeat report. It was a meticulous academic analysis of humanity's unprecedented response. They didn't just defend. Zelnar muttered to his senior advisors. They reimagined the entire concept of defensive strategy. Scattered transmissions from various observing civilizations began to paint a comprehensive picture. The humans hadn't just repelled an invasion. They had done so with a level of scientific and collaborative sophistication that challenged every existing understanding of technological conflict. Research institutions across multiple star systems began requesting access to the transmission logs. What humans had demonstrated was nothing short of a revolutionary approach to civilization-level problem-solving. Universities, think tanks, and scientific bodies wanted to understand the mechanism behind humanity's collective response. The most remarkable aspect was the complete lack of traditional military intervention. No massive weapon platforms, no planet-wide defensive shields, no conventional military response. Instead, humanity had transformed global research networks, technological ecosystems, and scientific collaboration into the most potent defensive mechanism imaginable. Smaller civilizations found hope in humanity's approach. Those who had long suffered under the Zentralian Imperium's expansionist policies sought a new model of resistance. It wasn't about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. It was about adaptability, collective intelligence, and the ability to transform potential threats into opportunities for growth. Dr. Krellman, the Zentralian cynosociologist who had previously mocked human potential, found himself at the center of an unprecedented academic storm. His previous reports were being re-examined, dissected, and thoroughly discredited. What he had seen as weakness was actually the most sophisticated form of preparation imaginable. Interstellar communication networks began to share fragments of the human response. Each analysis revealed new layers of complexity. Universities in distant star systems began collaborative research projects attempting to understand the human's approach. Competing civilizations set aside long-standing rivalries to study this unprecedented phenomenon. The Galactic Confederation's emergency session lasted standard cycles. Diplomatic representatives from hundreds of star systems tried to comprehend the implications. Humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had demonstrated a model of civilization-level response that challenged every existing paradigm of technological conflict. They transformed global competition into global cooperation. One diplomatic advisor noted, her translation matrix struggling to convey the full complexity of the observation. Not just during a crisis, but as a fundamental approach to existence. Research networks that had been traditionally isolated began to share resources. Competing scientific institutions started collaborative projects. The humans had inadvertently provided a blueprint for a new type of galactic interaction, one based on collective intelligence rather than military might. Captain Zarax, now a reluctant celebrity of sorts, found himself repeatedly called to provide testimony. His once proud invasion fleet reduced to a cautionary tale, he became an unexpected messenger of a profound galactic lesson. The transmission logs became required study in diplomatic and military academies across multiple star systems. What humans had done transcended traditional understanding of conflict, defense, and civilization-level problem-solving. As the final analyses began to settle, one fundamental truth emerged. Humanity wasn't just a species to be categorized or understood. They were a force of nature, unpredictable, adaptive, and capable of transforming potential extinction into an opportunity for unprecedented growth. The galaxy would never be the same again. The first diplomatic envoy arrived 6 standard galactic cycles after the failed invasion. Unlike previous first contact scenarios, this meeting was nothing like anyone had anticipated. No grand chambers, no formal military presentations. Instead, the human representatives chose a research facility on the outskirts of Geneva, a deliberate choice that spoke volumes about their approach to interstellar relations. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat at the head of a conference table that looked more like a collaborative research space than a diplomatic meeting room. Screens displayed real-time data from research networks across the planet. Behind her, a diverse team of scientists, economists, engineers, and communication experts waited quietly. The Zentralian diplomatic delegation entered, their previous arrogance replaced by a complex mixture of professional curiosity and deeply humbled respect. Captain Zarax, now serving as their primary diplomatic representative, carried himself differently. The confident military commander had been transformed into something else entirely, a student eager to understand. "We do not seek revenge," Elena began, her voice calm and measured. "We seek understanding." The presentation that followed was unlike any diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Instead of territorial demands or retribution, the humans offered something far more dangerous: a comprehensive analysis of the systemic failures that led to the attempted invasion. Each slide was a collaborative effort, pulling insights from psychology, technology, economic systems, and scientific research. The humans didn't just demonstrate their defensive capabilities. They revealed the underlying philosophy that made such a defense possible. Global challenges had transformed competition into unprecedented cooperation. Universities shared resources. Competing tech companies set aside rivalries. Independent researchers cross-referenced findings in real time. Your invasion was inevitable, Alina explained, but not because of your technological superiority. It was inevitable because of the systemic inequalities in galactic governance that create conditions for conflict. The Zentralian delegation listened in stunned silence. This wasn't a counterattack. This was a comprehensive diagnosis of galactic social structures that had remained unchallenged for millennia. Quantum physicists collaborated with material scientists. Behavioral psychologists worked alongside computational experts. Linguists analyzed communication patterns. Economists studied resource allocation strategies. The entire presentation was a living, breathing ecosystem of knowledge that defied traditional understanding of diplomatic interaction. Captain Zarax realized something fundamental had changed. Humanity wasn't offering a new form of conquest. They were presenting a new model of interstellar interaction based on collective intelligence, adaptive problem-solving, and genuine mutual understanding. The humans presented a radical proposal. Not military treaties, not resource exchanges, but a comprehensive knowledge-sharing platform that would allow civilizations to address systemic challenges before they could evolve into potential conflicts. "We don't want to be your rulers," Alina said. "We want to be your collaborators." Research networks from different star systems began to connect. Competing scientific institutions started collaborative projects. The humans had provided a blueprint for a new type of galactic interaction, one based on collective intelligence rather than military might. Each moment saw millions of potential scenarios analyzed, with collaborative strategies calculated and instantly refined. The humans had transformed global competition into a unified response mechanism that defied every known principle of interstellar diplomacy. As the final layers of the diplomatic presentation began to resolve, the Zentralian delegation understood a fundamental truth that would reshape their entire galactic perspective. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. They were redefining the very concept of civilization-level interaction. The diplomatic envoy would later report a single profound observation. Humans were not a species to be categorized or controlled. They were a force of nature, unpredictable, adaptive, and capable of transforming potential conflict into an opportunity for unprecedented growth. The galaxy would never be the same again.